Next up, we have Shane.
I'm Shane Langnes. I'm one of the DJs at the radio station, and on Sundays, all you great people who write their own stories, I would love for y'all to submit some or record your own self-writing. Get with me later on so I can read your stories on air, or you can do it yourself. But that's beside the point. So I write a lot of stories online, and the first one's going to be one of the ones that apparently enough people liked it so that I thought I should tell to y'all. And it's based on Kenny McCormick from South Park, his mother. It's not like that. It's not even vulgar. I mean, it kind of it's gross, but okay. So, okay, it begins like so. Oh God, the smell is unbearable. That's what the manager said. The groundskeeper was the first to notice a small hill that was forming before Carol McCormick's headstone. It took a bit of convincing, but he was able to get the manager of the small cemetery to take a look at the problem. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Ignoring it apparently caused the problem to get like this. It was common for some of the cheaper coffins to buckle after long winters, so there might be a small dip under some of the newer graves. The hill was not common. In fact, it never happened at all in the 45 years the groundskeeper had been working there. The two of them decided their only morbid plan was to dig the grave up. With each shovel of dirt, the two men heaved, the smell got worse. It shouldn't have taken so long. A little bit past noon, one of the mounds produced what could have been the source of the smell, a small rotted hand. Probably another grave had been buried in secret on top of the other, but the dirt was wrong. It was bloody. It was moist. The manager was the first one to vomit, as the next few scoops were just small bodies at various stages of rot. A few small dead bodies that were still intact. Digging deeper, the bodies were fresher, but in worse states. Having been pushed against the others, flattened, small bones shattered, bodies that never even had a chance, crushed into other bodies from a bloody stew. The sun was right on the horizon. The staff of the cemetery with stronger stomachs or a strange sense of gross curiosity had gathered to witness the horrors that the old man pulled out of the grave, and they found the crushed body of the woman who had spawned this massacre. Torn and battered, she was gone, save for the half-formed thing that was still inside her ruined abdomen, a horrible flattened sack on top of countless others in the process of birthing a monster into the world. The pictures taken quickly spread around the internet. There was no way to cover the story. The bodies were all burned and no one would claim them. Still, the remains tried to birth a new life every night, which would immediately die without a protective womb. The Center for Health Control and a few other government agencies came by and took what was left in the room of the woman to wherever they take things like this. Things in the town eventually returned to normal, and the public eye shifted away, and everyone forgot about the story of the woman. Everything goes on as normal. And yeah, I guess I'll read it. It's not finished exactly, but it's kind of longer. It's called The Fire Extinguisher. Here in Louisiana, we don't really have a fire department per se. Back in the 90s, a horrid swamp fire destroyed half of the wildlife reserve down in South Louisiana, so harsh fire laws were enforced, and almost 99% of the fires that could have happened before didn't. This caused the state to cut funding from fire stations ruthlessly. No fires, no need for firefighters. As you can imagine, they did need to keep some form of local fire control, and that's when they held this amazing test from all across the country. Fighters, extinguishers, controllers, all the different levels of firefighters were called to California to fight the biggest fire that had ever happened, a massive forest fire that was ravaging the West Coast. A lot of good men went in there and were lost to the burning beast inside. 2 weeks the forest fueled the burning monster, but one morning it was dark. 5 men, hands burned, together carrying a chain urn that rattled and shook. They all went their separate ways, but the one that eventually became the Louisiana Fire Extinguisher was from here in the swamp. It was an insane story, I know, given the fact that there are no fires reported in the state of Louisiana. He's actually the reason why there are no fires reported in Louisiana. Riding in a van, only getting off the highway for calls or going home, I was lucky to get a chance to spend a month with this monster of a man. Normally there might be 1 or 2 calls a week for small random fires. One might grow out of oil in a kitchen. A cigarette thrown into a trash can can birth a flame. Even hay left untended in a barn on a hot summer day can create a massive beast. It was like he knew the fire was there before the call even came in. His knuckles would whiten as he tightened his grip on the steering wheel. I picked up the phone for him since he already knew where it was due to some paranormal reason. Probably the same source these damn fires came from. I spoke to the operator. She was confused as to why it wasn't Frank. That's his name. He was already there by the time I had gotten done telling my story going on the phone. I assumed he couldn't waste time trying to get the address out of me since the blazing animals are born scared and angry. You could see the family sitting outside the house, covered in soot. The oldest daughter had third-degree burns on her hand. Later on, I got the story from her. It had started when Dad came home with his new frying pan. Never cooked before, so he left oil in the pan to heat up, and it started a grease fire. She tried to hold it back while the rest of the family got out. And here we are going into the smoke. Frank tossed me a small breathing device, which I dropped before putting it on. He chose not to don any equipment other than a thick yellow jacket and burnt leather boots. We went into the house, smoke flowing out of the kitchen. The smell of food cooking on a wooden stove was the first thing I noticed before I saw the beast. Frank already had his hands on it, smashing the small wicks with a closed fist, a strange squelching sound, like a cross between a cat's hiss and water being poured over embers. The flame shrunk in Frank's grasp. He ought to be to grab some sort of container. It took me a second to figure out what he meant. After he said it a few times, the thing in his hand saw its chance. Bursting forth from between his flames, an orange-blue river of flame threw itself into the back half of the kitchen, scorching the once white cabinets into a charred box. It burned around the walls, making its way back towards me. The first thing I can use to describe the heat is with this metaphor. Imagine you are snowed into a cabin in the woods. Freezing cold surrounds you, seeping into your body through whatever massive blankets you've accumulated to survive until the flowers turn back on. The cold burrows into you, making a home in your feet and hands first. The space heater plugged in the wall, set to max power, suddenly stirs. The black coil's orange glow intensifying into a white, hot wave of soothing heat directed towards your face. It gets a bit too hot for you. Your face still filled with the heat, unable to pull away. Meanwhile, the cold is still rooted deep inside your digits, too far away to feel. Too far away from the heat capital for the armies of warmth to invade. This is the best way I can describe how I felt being faced with a flame. I was on the floor before any real damage was done to me, and Frank was standing over me. He had the thing hissing and roaring under his arm, twisting it. A trail of flame went down a leg and was held in by its foot. I turned to the cabinet closest to me, just as one of the doors fell off its hinge. I saw a gold lid peeking out from under a pile of now melted Tupperware containers. I reached in and pulled out the large mason glass jar from inside of the plastic boot. Looking back, how the jar was plucked from his prison is a gaping hole in the story, along with the rest. Thank you.